For decades, Robert De Niro carried a quiet intensity that reshaped Hollywood. He wasn't the loudest actor, or the flashiest, or the one chasing headlines. He was a still force in a chaotic industry, the man who treated acting like a sacred commitment. But behind the calm exterior, De Niro held a strict personal code, a set of standards that never shifted no matter how powerful the studio became or how famous the co-stars were. At 88, he finally breaks the silence about the names he quietly vowed never to work with again. Some were icons he once respected. Some were rising stars who never understood the weight of a scene. Some crossed lines he found impossible to ignore. And now, the truth emerges about the actors Robert De Niro refuses to stand beside on a set ever again. The first name comes from a time when De Niro still believed every great actor shared the same obsession with craft, the same seriousness, the same respect for the work. He admired this man from a distance, studied his performances, and saw him as one of the few who understood the art as deeply as he did. When they were cast together, De Niro expected discipline, focus, and a partnership built on mutual dedication. Instead, he walked into chaos. The actor arrived unprepared, cracked jokes during rehearsals, dismissed the script, and treated emotional scenes like a casual exercise. De Niro tried to stay patient, but the frustration grew every day as he watched the project spiral into disorganization. The breaking point came during a dramatic confrontation scene. De Niro gave everything: raw energy, truth, timing. But the other actor mocked the moment, improvising lines that broke the rhythm and destroyed the emotional stakes. De Niro finished the film, but the respect was gone. He later told colleagues that nothing was more disappointing than seeing someone he once admired behave like an amateur. That was the day he decided never to share a set with him again. The second name represents a completely different kind of collision, an actor who turned every serious moment into a performance for laughter. De Niro has always believed that humor must be grounded in honesty. It can't be forced, it can't be desperate, and it can't break the reality of the scene. But this co-star, brought into a drama with comedic edges, treated every take like a stand-up routine. During emotional exchanges, he inserted jokes, exaggerated his expressions, and constantly broke character to entertain the crew. At first, De Niro tried to adapt, hoping the director would rein it in, but it only escalated. By the midpoint of filming, scenes that were meant to be intense collapsed into scattered, unfocused energy. The emotional core disappeared. De Niro's frustration wasn't about humor. It was about dishonesty. It was about someone who refused to honor the script and chase attention instead of truth. When the movie wrapped, De Niro made it clear to producers that he would never be paired with that actor again. To him, acting was a discipline, not a comedy stage. The third name shaped one of the most difficult working experiences of his career. This actor was a global superstar, a box-office giant with an image crafted through perfect poses and polished angles. Studios loved him because he guaranteed profits, but De Niro quickly saw through the surface. In their scenes together, he noticed the same pattern. The star never broke from his rehearsed expressions, the same head turns, the same practiced vocal shifts, the same controlled breathing. It was flawless, but it wasn't alive. De Niro tried to push him into more spontaneous reactions, giving surprising deliveries to break the pattern. But nothing changed. Every take was identical. Every movement felt calculated for the camera lens. De Niro respected discipline, but this wasn't discipline. It was vanity. It was performance built for admiration, not emotion. In private, he described it as acting without danger, without risk, without soul. After the film, De Niro quietly refused all future collaborations with him, telling a director that he couldn't work with someone who acted for the mirror instead of the moment. The fourth name is tied to a clash that still bothers him decades later. This actor, well known for extreme method acting, was introduced to De Niro as a next generation of serious performers. At first, De Niro welcomed him, believing in the value of immersive preparation. But he soon realized the younger star had taken the method approach into reckless territory. He stayed cruel between scenes, insulted the crew to stay in character, and created tension that spread through the entire set. De Niro watched assistants cry, watched extras shrink away from him, and watched the atmosphere collapse under unnecessary aggression. The breaking point happened during a stunt-like scene when the actor pushed past physical boundaries without warning, startling De Niro and nearly injuring a crew member. For De Niro, this wasn't commitment. This was ego hiding behind technique. When filming ended, he promised himself he'd never work with someone who weaponized method acting to justify bad behavior. The fifth name on De Niro's list belongs to an actor whose off-screen behavior left a deeper impact than anything they performed in front of the camera. De Niro has never cared about fame, fashion, or the artificial hierarchy of Hollywood. He came from a world where everyone on a set mattered, from the lighting crew to the makeup artist to the assistants carrying equipment under the sun. That's why the behavior he witnessed from this actor felt impossible to ignore. From the first day of shooting, the star treated the set like a personal kingdom. Assistants were ordered around like servants, shouted at for minor delays, or blamed for problems they had no control over. Crew members were forced to wait while the actor demanded personal luxuries, refused to rehearse on time, or halted takes to adjust vanity details. De Niro watched all of it quietly, aware that the disrespect wasn't accidental, it was a pattern. The breaking point came during a long night shoot when an exhausted crew member accidentally bumped into the star while moving equipment. Instead of showing patience, the actor exploded with insults, humiliating the worker in front of everyone. De Niro stepped in, not with a confrontation, but with a cold silence that made his position very clear. He finished the film professionally, never complained publicly, and never addressed the issue in interviews. But afterward, he privately rejected every future project involving that actor. For him, disrespect toward the crew was a line that could never be crossed. The sixth name exposes a generational clash that reveals how far the industry has drifted from the values De Niro built his entire life on. The actor was a fast-rising young star, known more for social media fame and polished publicity than for dedication to the craft. The studio paired them together to attract both older and younger audiences, hoping for a blend of classic and modern energy. But De Niro noticed a problem within the first week. Whenever rehearsals began, the young actor barely looked up from their phone, scrolling through messages, planning posts, or checking engagement numbers. When the director spoke, they listened with half an ear. When crew members approached with notes, they received distracted nods or impatient gestures. And when De Niro tried to discuss character motivations or scene intentions, he was met with vague responses and delayed attention. It became obvious the young star was interested in fame, not the work. The real fracture happened during a crucial emotional scene that demanded vulnerability from both actors. De Niro entered the moment fully present, delivering a raw, grounded performance. The younger actor, however, only switched into character when the camera was pointed at them, turning their intensity on and off like controlled performance mode. As soon as the director called cut, they broke character instantly, grabbed their phone, and resumed posting updates. For De Niro, it wasn't simply unprofessional. It was hollow. Acting required connection, awareness, and honesty, and none of those could exist when someone treated the set like a background for their personal brand. The situation deteriorated further during later scenes when the young star demanded lighting adjustments, extra close-ups, and retakes designed solely to flatter their appearance rather than strengthen the story. De Niro continued to deliver his part with complete integrity, but the partnership had already fractured. Once filming wrapped, he informed the producers he would never work with that actor again. The issue wasn't youth. De Niro had supported plenty of newcomers throughout his career. The issue was attitude. The young star had no respect for the craft, the crew, or the responsibility of storytelling. For De Niro, that was unacceptable. While these clashes were significant, the final story reveals the event that cemented De Niro's belief that certain people should never be invited into serious work. It involved an actor who built a reputation on unpredictability, someone who claimed to thrive in chaotic creative environments. The studio brought them into a thriller project, hoping the energy between the two would create explosive tension on screen. De Niro approached the film with the same quiet discipline he always brought, studying the script, refining choices, and preparing the emotional spine of the role. But from the moment they met on set, the other actor turned every scene into a display of volatility. Rehearsals became loud rants. Notes from the director were met with theatrically exaggerated frustration. Simple blocking became an argument. And in emotional scenes, the actor would intentionally derail the tension by inserting improvised shocks that had nothing to do with the narrative. One day, during a confrontation sequence, the actor pushed past the physical limits agreed upon in rehearsal, grabbing De Niro harder than necessary and forcing the scene into dangerous territory. The crew froze, waiting for De Niro to react. He didn't yell, didn't escalate, and didn't display anger. He simply reset, finished the scene, and walked off set as soon as the director called cut. After that, every interaction between them remained strictly professional, but the decision had already been made. De Niro refused to work with someone who confused recklessness with authenticity. By the end of that project, De Niro had seen enough. He understood that not everyone shared his respect for the work. Some acted for attention, some for image, some for ego, and some for chaos. He could adapt to different styles, but not to disregard, disrespect, or danger. At 88, the list remained short but firm, built from experiences that shaped his belief in what acting should be and what it should never become. By the time De Niro reached his late career, his understanding of people had sharpened to a point. He no longer needed explanations, excuses, or dramatic confrontations. He simply watched how someone behaved when the cameras weren't rolling, how they treated their scenes, how they handled pressure, and how they respected the people around them. Quietly and without fanfare, he built his own internal blacklist, not out of hostility but out of experience. Every name on it represented a moment where the craft was ignored, the story was damaged, or the humanity of others was dismissed. And De Niro, who never cared for gossip or public drama, held on to these decisions in silence. At 88, with nothing left to prove, he finally acknowledges the truth behind those choices. There was another actor he refused to work with, someone who approached every set like a battlefield where dominance mattered more than collaboration. From the first day, De Niro sensed tension. Scenes became power struggles instead of performances. Every line delivery was treated like a competition. Instead of focusing on emotional honesty, the actor focused on overshadowing De Niro, pushing harder in every moment to steal attention. That attitude changed the entire atmosphere. Crew members walked on eggshells, unsure when the next outburst would erupt. Directors struggled to maintain control. The actor's insecurity disguised itself as aggression, turning even simple exchanges into confrontations. For De Niro, acting was never about winning. It was about truth, rhythm, and partnership. Working with someone who cared only about dominance made the experience feel mechanical and forced. The film was finished, but De Niro walked away certain he would never be part of another project with that energy again. Another name on his list came from a different type of frustration, someone whose lack of preparation made every day harder than it needed to be. De Niro had seen unprofessional behavior before, but this actor pushed it to a new level. They arrived to set without knowing their lines, refused rehearsals, and dismissed direction with casual disinterest. When the camera rolled, they relied on improvisation that had no connection to the script, forcing De Niro to anchor scenes that fell apart around him. The crew grew tired. The director grew anxious. The project dragged behind schedule. And through it all, the actor behaved as if their fame absolved them from doing the work. One particularly tense day, a heavy emotional scene was derailed repeatedly because the actor couldn't remember the simplest moments. De Niro delivered take after take, while the other person struggled to remain consistent for even 10 seconds. When production finally wrapped, De Niro remained professional, but the lesson stayed with him. Preparation wasn't optional. Commitment wasn't negotiable. He refused all projects involving that individual afterward. As the years passed, De Niro encountered one more type of actor he promised himself to avoid forever, the performer who injected personal drama into every corner of the set. This person wasn't reckless, wasn't disrespectful to the crew, and wasn't lazy. Instead, they carried emotional storms that disrupted the entire environment. Every small issue became a crisis. Every note from the director became an insult. Every adjustment became a meltdown. The cast and crew spent more time managing their emotions and building the film. De Niro watched as the project slowed to accommodate constant chaos. Time was wasted. Momentum died. Scenes that required focus were derailed by unpredictable reactions. And during moments that demanded calm vulnerability, the actor's volatility destroyed the stability needed to build anything meaningful. De Niro finished his part with discipline, but afterward he made a quiet decision. He could no longer work with performers who brought their personal turmoil onto the set and expected everyone else to carry it for them. With age and experience, De Niro learned that the worst collaborators weren't always the loudest or the most obvious. Sometimes the most damaging were the subtle ones, the actors who smiled in public but undermined scenes in private, who nodded politely but never respected the work, who talked about art but treated filmmaking like a casual hobby. He noticed how some actors were more invested in fame than storytelling, more interested in online image than emotional truth. These experiences shaped his refusal not as a list of personal grievances, but as a code he refused to compromise. Now, looking back over decades of work, De Niro's stance is simple. He doesn't hate these actors. He doesn't attack them publicly. He doesn't criticize their careers. His refusal is about protection of the story, protection of the crew, and protection of the craft that defined his entire life. He knows how fragile a film can be, how easily one careless person can ruin the tone, break the rhythm, or drain the energy of an entire production. At 88, De Niro stands by every decision. The actors he refuses to work with represent moments he never wants to repeat, moments where the craft was compromised, where professionalism disappeared, or where collaboration became impossible. And in an industry where legends often stay silent, De Niro's quiet honesty reveals something rare. A lifetime shaped not just by the roles he played, but by the people he chose to avoid. When the stories settle and the memories fade, one truth remains. Robert De Niro never forgot the actors who broke his code, and he never let them back into his world again.